Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 59 of Show Viewers. Today we'll be going over volumes 3 through 6 of Fire Punch. Now, this is some good stuff. Like, this is some peak stuff. Like, okay, Fire Punch, like, the first 2 volumes were great. Then I read these 4, and, phenomenal. So, book 3 predominantly. Here you just got back. Pretty cool all around. So, book 3 predominantly focuses on where we left off on volume 2 with, Agni going back to Behemdorg to fight Doma. Well, as he's going through this, they end up running into a bunch of slaves, him, Minato, and Togata. And while they're doing this, Ninato's like, do not focus on the slaves, because if you focus on the slaves, then I'm not going to take you to Doma. But Agni ends up focusing on the slaves, and he begins to let them out. But during this, Judo was setting up, like, the inmates that they had at the exit, so when the slaves and Agni and all of them came out, then Judo would be there prepared to take down Agni with the inmates. So we see as this ends up happening, and with this we see as Agni ends up fighting all of the inmates, and these battles are sick. Like, hold on, let me find. Okay, so the predominant one that he fights is like this big mech thing, and it is a phenomenal battle. It's really cool. It's got a bunch of cool graphics and all that stuff, and like there's one, for example, Agni at one point gets punched into a building and it lights ablaze and blows up because, he is fire punching, and his fire burns internally. But I also believe there was, like, old bombs in the building or something like that, and it blew it up, and, like, most of the civilians have been evacuated, but it killed, like, a lot of people. But, yeah, we just kind of see him fight all of them, and eventually he ends up coming out on top on all of these, and we see as all of the slaves suddenly begin to see Agni as a god. They begin to see him as Fire Punch, which is their new god, and, we actually get to see the Fire Punch for the first time. It is due to this little device that Togata gave to Agni, to where he punches with his right arm and it gives like an explosive force, like hard, but it's only a one-time use. But yeah, we see this attack and it is really sick. Hold on, let me find it. See if I can find it here. Okay. Oh yeah, there was also, okay, I just was looking through. While he's fighting one of the inmates kind of has like a Magneto level blessing to where it can control the movement of iron, and like it's not with magnetism, but I don't believe it's with magnetism. I believe he can just control the movement of iron. And he begins to send he begins to send Agni into space. And Agni is actually really smart here. So what he does while he's getting going into space with all of like the staves in his body, he cuts his head off and lets it fall to the earth so he can regenerate back there, which I thought was really smart, honestly. And let's see. That's not the Fire Punch. Okay. So, crap. Let me see if I can find it. I know it's here somewhere. Okay, yeah. We see that right there. Oh my gosh. If it would focus. Agni, Fire Punching the big mech dude. But, yeah. And during all this, we see as Batman shows up. And Batman is this dude who is a supporter of Agni because he heard about this elusive fire god who was going against Behemdorg, and he ultimately ends up coming to help, and he ends up helping save the slaves. He ends up beating up some of the Behemdorg forces and all that, and essentially Behemdorg is overthrown now because they just came in and took name. Well, Agni came in and just took name. But yeah, so after this, Judah ends up running off, and Agni begins to follow her. They go off into the winter, like the desert cold. I mean, desert, yeah, technically that is a desert because Antarctica is a desert since it gets less than, I believe, 10 inches of rain per year. I don't know if this is with precipitation, so this technically wouldn't be a desert, I don't believe. But, whatever. But yeah, so we go along and we see as Judah follows Agni, and eventually, they run into this character who reveals himself to be the Ice Witch, who is essentially who brought down all of the snow and cold on everything, and Agni believes it. But yeah, during all this, the Ice Witch ends up penetrating Agni with an ice stave and taking Judah. And so we see as that's kind of where the volume ends, with Judah getting taken off, actually lit in a blaze, then taken off by the Ice Witch since she decapitated her. Since she tried to light herself on fire, but the Ice Witch didn't end up allowing that. Yeah, so then ultimately we end up starting book 4. Here's book 4. We got this right here, very cool, probably the coolest cover so far. I love this cover because you got two of the new, well, hold on, yeah, that's 2 new characters right there, and then you got Agni in the background. But then you got this back, and then you got Spawn. But yeah, so with this, hold up. So, okay, yeah, this one ends. All right, yeah. So we start off with the Ice Witch revealing to Judah who she is. She is not actually the Ice Witch, and the Ice Witch doesn't actually exist. But she's revealing to her like who she is, what her plan is. Now she is a individual who looks like Luna, just like Judah does. And apparently, she is a regenerative blessed who has been around for thousands of years, and her goal is to use Judah to create this large tree which will sap all of the life forms from Earth so that the Ice Witch can become a progenitor of all and create a world. And specifically, she's wanting to recreate this world because she's a big fan of movies. And in the world before everything went to crap, when she was alive, okay, so this is very stupid, but the final sequels of a Star Wars trilogy for them didn't end up coming out. And she was very disappointed by this. So her goal is to recreate the world all the way exactly the same to the point in which the final Star Wars sequel can get released. But, yeah, so then after that we see as Togata and Minato end up finding Agni, and they end up taking him back to like this village where all of his supporters and the slaves are now living, and they begin to worship him as a god, and they begin to expect things of him, like godly things, and they begin to expect food because they're starving and there's so many people there. So what Agni begins to do is Agni starts cutting off, he starts getting Togata to cut off the non-burning side of his face so they can feed them flesh, and they start making rumors about eating certain parts of Agni will lead to certain blessings and all that good stuff. Not like inverse blessings, which is like the general term for blessings. But yeah, so we see this, and we see as some people try and grow a little bit off, but it's all predominantly good. And some people don't really want to eat the flesh, but they do anyways. And yeah, so let's see with this one. I should make certain. Okay, yeah, but with that, we end up just kind of growing, and we see as Togata is slowly growing like distant from Agni, and she's not wanting to be there anymore. And eventually, she has an interaction with her, Batman, and Agni, and Batman comes up to Agni. He's like, "Yo, I can see into people's hearts because that's the blessed power that Batman has." And he's like, "She is not a good character. She is lying to you. She is a man in a woman's body." Yeah, he just says she's a man. So what it is with, okay, I apologize. I don't know like the exact terminology and all that. I don't mean offense if I get anything wrong. But yeah, so what we see is okay, so Togata is a biologically born female, and she has the mind of a male in her though. She wants to be a man. She wanted to undergo a gender change, but never could. And due to her regenerative abilities, because it just can't work like that. It's kind of like, well, I'm not gonna go into that, but okay, so let's go, yeah. Yeah, she cannot undergo a gender swap because of her regenerative abilities. And so eventually she ends up running off, and Agni follows her. She's like, "I need you. I see you as a big sister, big brother, an older sibling, and I need you." So eventually, Togata ends up coming back. He's like, "I'll go after Doma if you'll just stay. I'll let you film it and everything." So eventually, they end up hunting down Doma, and they do this by capturing a Behemdorg outsider, and Agni ends up letting them stay, but they have to reveal where Doma is, and eventually they end up going to where Doma is. And that's kind of where Book 4 leaves off. Book 4 really leaves off with Togata revealing that she is a man in a woman's body. But yeah, so we see as the Behemdorg people end up revealing to them, and this is the cover of 5. Nice cover. Well, that kind of sounds kind of odd, but it's just kind of cool looking. It kind of looks like Greek fire or something like that. Not Greek fire, but Dragon's Breath? I can't remember what the green fire in Game of Thrones is right now for some reason. But yeah, so with that, we ultimately end up seeing as Togata and Agni end up going to Doma, and they find Doma. Doma's out there fishing, and Doma reveals how he's become enlightened and all that stuff, and he reveals why he became disillusioned with Behemdorg, because he believed it was his goal, because they were all indoctrinated to believe that it was the goal of their god to essentially purify the world and make everything for their god. And their god was let me find the name of it real quick. Let's see, crap. Alright, 124. My bad. Okay, I'm in the right book. Okay, so Behemdorg. Okay, fire Behemdorg. Okay. But Doma reveals that he became disillusioned from Behemdorg because he eventually was raiding one person's house, and he found a movie. This movie was named Fire Bihimdorg. They were showing them actions of their god that was just an actor in a movie that they had been lied to all the time. And Doma became disillusioned with this, became enlightened, and so he began to feel horrid for all the things that he did in the name of Fire Bihimdorg. But yeah, so Agni learns all this, and he's like, yeah, I can't kill him anymore. So he goes and walks off, and Nineto's like, yo, actually Nineto learns after he reveals that it was a movie, that it was Doma who burned down her house and burned down all of her movies and essentially took her reason to live away from her. So she goes really angry, and she's like trying to kill Doma, trying to fight at Doma, and Agni's like, okay, I'm leaving, I'm not going to kill him. And she goes off, and she's like, yo, why won't you kill him and all that stuff? And he reveals that he just can't do it because also Agni had raised up a bunch of kids, and he had these kids around him, he was taking care of them, I believe there was 12 of them, and he was feeding them, and he was like, if you kill me, these kids are going to die. And Agni didn't want those kids' lives on his hands. So he ends up going off, but then he starts to get visions of Luna telling him to become Fire Punch. And then we swap and see he did not walk off. He killed every single one in that house. The Guardian, he killed Doma, he killed the children, he burned everything to the ground. I was like, whoa. Daggum, I was not expecting that, because I was like, Agni's walking off, he's good, he's leaving. He's done this before, he's decided that he doesn't want to hunt down Agni. And he was just hunting down Agni this time to stay with Minato. Not Minato, Togata, golly. But, yeah, he lost it this time. He burned everything. But, yeah, so after that, wait, hold on, let me, yeah, he just, absolute destruction of everything. And eventually, he's like, okay, I've done this horrible thing. I can't live with myself anymore. So he walks over to the frozen lake that Doma was fishing on, and he begins to allow himself to fall through. And when he falls through, Togata's like, no, I can't let Agni die. So she ends up hopping in, grabbing Agni, lighting herself ablaze, pulling Agni out, and then burning to death near Agni. And that was a really sad death, because I know Togata, they had a close relationship, because Togata was like one of the first people that Agni really kind of grew closer with besides Luna. And once again, Togata gives Agni the curse of living, just as Luna did. And so after that, we see as Togata ends up completely dying, and then we see as Agni is walking away, and he pulls up on this view right here, which is the tree. Construction has begun on the tree. So the ice switch has converted Judah into a tree form, and it has started to drain the village that they were in of the life. So then we get to volume 6, and you see all that right there. And eventually Agni sees the tree, he ends up crawling up it, and he is preparing to break Judah out. And eventually he is able to break Judah out, and Judah was revealed early on to have the ability to negate blessings. So while he's breaking her out, Judah is able to negate Agni's blessing, and he no longer has a blaze. He's no longer lit a blaze, and he's no longer regenerating. And they fall from the tree, and they end up in the water. And Judah is now, she has, amnesia now. Because now she believes that she is Luna, and she's referring to Agni as her brother. And this really messes with Agni. Agni's, switching between, no, she's Judah, she's not Luna. And then he's like, oh, yes, she's Luna. And he is just kind of brainwashed into believing this. But ultimately, they end up floating off. They run into this establishment of people, and they start to look for clothes, but then the people catch them, and they're like, yo, get out of here. And once they go to leave, they ultimately run upon some Bihimdorg refugees, and they've come to raid this area. And we see as they send Agni off and keep Judah back, and Agni walks up there, and he's telling him that he's not with them, but then he ends up beating the crap out of him, because Agni is still super strong. He's a buff dude anyways, because his body having to be continuously constricted due to the fire on him and just tensing up. So that's why he's as strong as he is and as bulky as he is. But yeah, he ends up doing this. They ultimately end up allowing him to stay with them in the establishment, and we just see as he slowly becomes assimilated with them, and just kind of works around and all that good stuff, and kind of helps him out, helps him collect food, and we just see as he slowly breaks kind of, and just discerning between whether it's Luna or Judah when it's actually just Judah the whole time. And we see as he eventually ends up going to this house where they also, it's not really important, but they revealed that one of the people here is one of Doma's children who did not get burned alive. But yeah, we see as Agni is staying with the people, and then they're like, yo, go wipe out this area of Behem soldiers that have like set up post here. He goes, wipes them out, lights himself ablaze. Oh, so also, I believe it was a bit earlier on, while they were just recently staying in the establishment, that we see as Judah at one point tells Agni to live or something like that, or don't die, or it's something like that, and he gets his regenerative abilities back. So I guess she has the ability to negate and restore. I guess she just briefly negated it, Agni's, because I mean, at first we see him, it's after he gets shot a lot, and he doesn't bleed to death. However, at one point, Judah comes up, and like they're trying to heal him naturally, but Judah comes up, tells him to live, and he ends up regenerating instantly. So I don't know what's up with that, but ultimately he ends up going to the Behem outpost, tries to light himself ablaze, but it doesn't work, and he just goes in and slimes all of them out, and we see as one of the people who was a part of the group he was with are dead. He ends up cutting his arm off to make it look like he didn't grow his arm back, or at least had it been more of a fight, and he ultimately ends up coming back, and he reveals to the people that he killed all of the people at the Behem outpost, and I said "and" like 8,000 times, but he reveals to them, and one of the characters, or one of the people there is like, you could just kill people like that easily? And he's like, yes, I can do whatever I need to for Luna. And yeah, we just see as this, and this is where he reveals to Agni that Fire Punch killed his family, and he reveals that he's a child of Doma, and this is and how Fire Punch is kind of the reason why all of this stuff has happened to him. It talks about not good things, sexually not good things, and just a bunch of death and all that good stuff. Not all that good stuff. Oh my god, I gotta quit saying that. Holy smokes, not good stuff, not good stuff. But yeah, so eventually he ends up agreeing with the little kid that he will go and kill Fire Punch, even though he is Fire Punch. But yeah, the interesting thing about with this volume is I was reading it and I was like, this seems like a fever dream of the book. What the heck is going on? Because that cohesive story, what kind of cohesive story? I forgot about this sick panel, by the way. Sorry about the tangent. But this like cohesive story, semi-cohesive story that I told you was nothing like it was in this volume. And I was like, what the heck? Why is it like this? Well, actually, with volume 6 of Fire Punch, there were many misprints in which some of the last chapters in the entire series were just splotched in throughout here. Like, I believe 79 and 80 were in mine. So I was just seeing this, I was like, what the heck is going on? Because I see, like, Sun spearing Agni at one point. I'm like, huh? What is going on? And eventually I Googled it and I was like, oh, I just spoiled this volume that I bought from Books A Million, just spoiled me on part of the events. But it isn't, it wasn't like the final chapter, but like I said, it was really close to the end. There's only 83 chapters, but, yeah, that was something, because I was like, what the heck? Did Fujimoto smoke crack while he was writing this volume? No, it was just a misprint. But yeah, it was really cool. I actually own a misprint of Fire Punch now, even though it's pretty common. But yeah, that's all I really have to say about volumes 3 through 6 of Fire Punch. All I really have for episode 59 of Show Review. So thank you very much for watching.